Okay, so Ruby Gord. This is a team that everyone's been talking about for ever since Evo, I want to say, or past few months, more or less. This has been the main subject of controversy or anything like that within the community, and rightfully so. Team's really messed up. The team is very good at playing the game, to put it lightly, and like the offense and the neutral seem so overwhelming for a lot of people that they don't really have an idea of where to start. And yeah, that happens in a lot of games, but I guess for this one, yeah, there are a lot of like really kind of specific answers that not a lot of people know about. So I guess today I'll try to be going over what I know and how, most people can apply it. So a basic idea of how the team works is like, okay, so usually Ruby's in front, and the team always involves the usage of cross combo, which is a very powerful system mechanic that the game uses, and this team is definitely the best in the game at the moment at utilizing this mechanic, because both characters have special moves that can easily change within each other. And for Ruby's example, she has this move, the Siphon, and like moves that last a long time are typically the ones that end up benefiting the most from the cross combo invul. And she also has the Buzzsaw as well, of course. So those two moves are generally her active switch moves. Those two moves, and then for Gordeau, he really only has one, and that, well, I guess two if you count the EX version, but it's Be Grim Reaper because of how long it lasts and how much it moves him forward in addition to that. And that combined with CC and Vol is really hard to stop. And most people, I feel like usually a lot of people don't know that they kind of have to just like, especially if they're like in the air or something and they're like falling down from like a EX Grim Reaper or something like that, they kind of just have to like just deal with it and kind of just don't try to like overcommit to something and get both your characters killed, because definitely seen that where people like try to end up swinging on Gordo and they just end up getting caught like that, and then usually that just leads to the game being lost. Like when I played against Kazunoko, or like when I was like preparing to fight him, I just wanted to get a general idea of how the team worked. So I just didn't want to be surprised by anything. And yeah, generally, he plays the team to it's very like by the book. He just goes by the cheap stuff, and he uses the basic idea of that fully. So I just want to understand the basic idea of the team so I can so I can play the best I can. And when I was really preparing for it, I made sure to find as many answers as I could, and I wanted to make sure that I could properly use two things. And I think these two things are like vital to fighting the team. It's push block, like proper usage of push block, and bursting. Bursting is an extremely important thing in this particular matchup, because a lot of people burst this team at like the wrong points, and it usually just gets them killed because usually bursting in this game, it's usually kind of easy to figure out like where the safe burst points are. It's just like, oh, when he calls his assist or something like that. And then when cross combo happens, which is very often in this team, usually people get lost, and it's really hard for them to figure out where am I supposed to burst and all this stuff. So generally, two rules of thumb is to wait for the active switch, like before bursting. You really want to make sure that the burst is guaranteed, and you don't have to like worry about them active switching to the other character. So like usually the combos for Ruby Gord are generally similar. So, like especially in cross combo, they all kind of have the same general flow to them. So during the points where they active switch to each other, that's a time when you can burst. There are a few exceptions though. Ruby's Buzzsaw is a move that's like, especially when it's sandwiched in between like both the characters, it's really hard to burst that move because it's a move that like constantly, it just keeps going. So Yeah, like even EX Grim Reaper, like that move usually when you burst, like it ends up stopping as long as like you're out of the range. But and like you end up hitting both of them, which can definitely happen sometimes. But in this particular example, show like it being a little like the one really dangerous point to burst is definitely here, just because like, oh, I did it a little wrong there. But essentially like what ends up happening is oh, Jin's burst is probably a bad example just because it's a burst. This happened in my set with Kyame a lot, where the buzzsaw would keep going, and it would catch his burst even though it hit Gordo. And what he should have done was actually just wait for the buzzsaw to end and burst right before Gordo did a 2B, because then I wouldn't get caught by the explosion. So, or just the buzzsaw coming down like that. But yeah, so with proper burst usage is generally like right when they active switch to the other character. Just so, let me see. Let me try an example right here. Like something like that. Usually, like, you would wait for, like, since you're so far away, the buzzsaw won't like track you from that far away. So that's a very safe bursting point. And then another safe bursting point would be like during like a siphon switch, for example, like something like this. Like generally, you want to make sure your bursts count for what you can do them for, because like it's a very important resource, the assist gauge. So you want to make sure that it all counts and your bursts work. When I played against Kazunoko, I ended up making a lot of my bursts work out, because I would burst right before like a jump cancelable normal. That's like generally like a very good point to burst for like all characters. So like I remember there was an example like when I fought him when oh shit, when he was trying to convert off of B Grim Reaper, and I was able to burst like right before the 5B managed to hit me. And it's the same case for like when Gordo's trying to convert off of the buzzsaw too, because yeah, generally with stuff like that, like as long as they can't jump cancel or like active switch from the character that's farther away, it should be okay for you to burst. So with that in mind, let me try to see if I can replicate it a little bit. Okay, no, not that one. Okay. Yeah, that would be another like example of a place to probably not burst, just because of his 2B is a head invul move, and that's it's hard to generally burst against Gordo in that spot in general. So the other thing is if I can't find a safe place to burst, that I won't burst at all. So it's okay to like take the damage and just some people actually like to burst towards the end of the cross combo string, like for example, like when they used all their cross combo gauge. Okay, that wasn't a good example, but like let's see. Yeah, like somewhere around there. Like probably most people, like Kyame ended up doing that a lot when I fought him, just because it was a guaranteed point for them to burst out and for neutral reset. Personally, I didn't really do that too much, but you know, it depends on how you want to play against the team. And personally, just if you feel like you can't find a safe point to burst, then it's usually just better to just not burst at all, and then save your assist meter for a better time. And so that's like the bursting portion of it, and it's something you should definitely experiment with it to see like the burst points that probably work best for you. Whether if it's like in the middle or whether if it's towards the end. It's a lot safer towards the end, but you know, it's also like you have to like burst at that point. They will get the cross meter gauge before you do, ultimately, just because that's the way it works. And if you do it in the middle of it, you'll take less damage, but you run the risk of it getting baited, especially if you do it in a wrong spot. So you kind of just have to make sure that you know what you want before, like for a burst with going in there, just because if it gets baited, like it's usually like a really bad look for the rest of the game, just because of it's all red health damage. So just try to, like, I guess that's like the definitely a major point that I focused on, was making sure I could burst him efficiently. And I would usually try to do that within like points where they couldn't really bait it. And it was mostly because of whether if they're too close to each other, so they can't active switch for it to whiff, or if it's or if it's like in a place where they switch like right as they active switch, so it'll end up being okay, with a few exceptions, of course. Like mainly Ruby Buzzsaw, just because like when you're close anyway. When you're farther away, it's always fine. But anyway, so that's the bursting portion of it. But I'll get back to bursting, because that's actually not quite the last I have to say about that. But so the way I'm gonna go about this is I'm gonna show you my answers for when Ruby's on point versus when Gordo's on point. So for now, I guess I'll just go with the answers for when Ruby's on point. So starting off, this is a common situation that a lot of people find themselves in. Is just like they see Ruby cross combo, she's in the air or she's on the ground, and a buzzsaw is coming, like absolutely like a buzzsaw switch. And then using that buzzsaw switch, Gordo is going to come in, and then cross combo offense is going to start like this. So there's actually a way to use push block in a way to where you don't have to really deal with her like just locking you down for free like that. And usually, and this involves jump push blocking. If you push block it on the ground, because if you push block Ruby, it'll push her away like a pretty decent amount. So you could actually use that to your advantage, and you use push block and call assists, so you can stop Gordo from approaching you. And if you really want to, you can even stop it yourself. You don't even have to like wait for the assist if you so choose. But personally, I like calling the assist just because it's way safer. And if I'm playing the mirror, then I actually get to start my cross combo offense from there, or any other team that gets to use cross combo offense from there. You get to. Oh wait, I think we went. Did we go offline?
What?
Did we go offline?
No, we're good.
No, we're good. Okay. All right. Well, never mind. So anyway, so when buzzsaw neutral is happening, usually what a lot of people do is they wait for like the buzzsaw to stop, and then they let Gordo get in, and they try to push block Gordo instead. And usually it's a lot more efficient to try to stop and press your advantage by using that as an opportunity for you to press something. And so that's one thing. And in the corner, the answers change actually, because if you try to air push block it, it actually doesn't end up pushing her very far, and she ends up just coming back down. So that's not really an answer you want to go for. Instead, you ground push block, and you can call like a defensive assist like 4P. And usually it ends up working out a little better, especially if they're farther away from the corner. If they're like really close to the corner, it's pretty hard to get to do stuff. But the other thing to keep in mind is when characters are doing active switch moves, like active switch special moves in cross combo, they cannot active switch back to the original character until the active frames are over. Like notice how like once I switch to Ruby, I can't switch back to her until Siphon's over. So you can actually use this to your advantage when you're trying to defend against these characters, because you have to keep in mind that they have to wait until the special move, it ends. They have to wait until it ends until they get to do something from it. And because of that, they're probably going to be waiting around until trying to keep you in block stun until the move starts to end so that they can do more things like this. And it's important to keep that in mind, because using that, you can actually you can kind of use that moment of hesitation to kind of try to create an opening for yourself. So that's the general rule set with that, and the answers for Buzzsaw. So it's important to keep that in mind, just so they don't use that as a way to win neutral for free. And always and I guess for this team especially, you always definitely want to try to keep in the air as much as you can, just because especially characters that can keep in the air for a long time, like Ruby herself or Mika or any character like that, they can end up stalling the timer a little longer, just because that team can't really reach that high up unless they use Ruby for Buzzsaw switch, and even then it's not the most efficient way of doing it. So I guess with that in mind, there's definitely a lot to keep in consideration when fighting this team, for sure. So that was and then so that's it for Buzzsaw for now, at least that I can think of. For Siphon, that move's a little different, because it's it's her grounded active switch move, and it's the one you see a lot also, and it's usually, this is what a sequence from Siphon usually looks like. So there's two things you can do. One thing you can actually do is there's actually a big gap in between when she puts down the gun like that and when she fires the bullets. So what you can actually do is it's enough time for you to call an assist and have them take the second bullet for you, and then you can actually end up doing several things. If you think they're gonna approach you like that, then you can call an assist, take the hit for you, and then hit Gordo instead. So this works for all assists as a result. So it's something that you can do, and they have to go out of their way to call out fuzzy assist calls like that, because it's a defense option that's hard to call out in general, because you can't really end up hitting the first character too, unless maybe you do a command grab at the right time. But it really depends on the scenario, and it's not, I guarantee you, it's something that no Ruby Gord player will be looking for. It's because not a whole lot of people know about stuff like this. The other thing though is you can use push block to decrease the block stun on the first hit of that, and you can end up getting away from that situation altogether. But this does come at a few risks sometimes, depending on how you want to escape. Just because Gordo's still able to move, but do keep in mind again that Gordo can't active switch back into Ruby until she's done with Siphon. And that's something that, so while Siphon's going on, he can't do Grim Reaper active switch or something like that. He has to wait until Ruby's done, and then he can start to do the other things, with Grim Reaper active switch or wherever you feel really. So that's it with the answers for that side of the team, at least that I can think of at the moment. So for Gordo, right? I think with this is usually what a lot of people have trouble with neutral wise as well, just because the CC lets you put a giant Grim Reaper in their face, and it's something, especially if you're in the air, you just kind of have to just deal with it, and it's something you don't want to challenge and potentially get yourself killed. But you can personally, I don't feel too uncomfortable blocking it, because so keeping in mind the fact that you can't do any active switch things with Gordo until the B Grim Reaper's over, you can actually do some other thing, like some things in the meantime, depending on how the Grim Reaper hits you. What a lot of JP players do, and it's something that I do as well, is that like the B Grim Reaper, I like to push block the B Grim Reaper away if I can, just because it ends up like you can actually put yourself in a scenario. You don't have to escape. You can actually put yourself in a scenario where it can hit Ruby back as she's trying to approach you. So there are things like that that you can do for B Grim Reaper. And then there's this situation where if you're close enough to the B Grim Reaper, you can it actually goes behind you like that. So well, actually there's a better example, like more like this. Yeah, like and that in turn can set up like active switch scenarios, just because a lot of people aren't prepared for that. Because active switch essentially are like just cross combo in general. When you switch to the other character, it takes away the collision box on the assist character, so they can go through them. And but however, if Grim Reaper ends up going behind you, the final hits of that move will actually whiff if you're crouching. So if especially keeping in mind, since they have to wait a little bit until they can do like any like mix-up stuff off of it, like that, then you can actually mash that in the meantime if you avoid the hits that are before towards the end of the Grim Reaper. So like right around there, you notice how as the Grim Reaper goes behind Ragna, the final hit of the Scythe ends up missing him. So he actually has time to do anything he wants, including hitting a button. And if they do try to make it like tight, then that also means that they can't do any immediate mix-up off of it. So that's when you're free to push block them away or anything like that. So let's see, for that to keep in mind. And this is another mix-up that a lot of people end up like getting hit by, is just like doing Grim Reaper in neutral or EX Grim Reaper in neutral, and then 5B cross up into Grim Reaper. So if you think they're gonna do that, you can actually explode their whole team for trying to do that, because like if you push block the 5B, you can actually end up hitting both their characters as a result of them trying to go for something like that. And keep in mind, she can also do like overhead or just a generic pressure string. But that's usually what she's gonna want to do, because she wants to just start the mix up right away. And most people, when they push block this particular, like her 5B, they don't think that they can mash, but you actually can. So it's something to keep in mind if you think she's gonna go for a teleport mix up, that you can just stop her from doing something like that. Because if you push block her away, Grim Reaper doesn't come back in time because of the delay from the active switch, I guess is what to call it. Like when you do a special move and you active switch to it, you can't switch back to it until it's all over. Do keep in mind though, once it goes into recovery frames, you can instantly go into it. So that's one thing to consider. And it's something that they have to abide to if they want to do anything to open you up. So that goes to this sequence. This sequence is one that a lot of people have trouble with, is this one, where essentially Gordo is firing gunshots to continue pressure off of his 2B. And normally people would think, yeah, it's a 50-50. Like you can actually yeah. It's a very bad situation to be in, and there's not really a whole lot you can do to mitigate. But actually, there is one thing you can do. There are a few things. For one thing, his command grab, his EX command grab, the reason why he uses that one is because if he tries to go for the A command grab, on some ranges he won't have enough time to convert off of it. And the other thing is, if the command grab misses, the regular one, it'll take a lot longer for him to recover, so they won't be able to continue pressure if it misses. So that's why they use the EX command grab, because not only does it have very little whiff recovery, but it also gives her plenty of time to go up to them and continue and like start a combo going. So with that in mind, that command grab startup is 11 frames, right? And Gordo's 2B starts up at 9 frames. So what you can actually do is if you pinpoint the moment when you think that they're going to go for a mix-up, like this kind of mix-up, you can fuzzy jump and avoid both options. They can definitely blow you up for it if they see this coming by doing things like just a delay 2B or something like that. But most Ruby Gord players will default to just the basic like string of doing this at like the same times in the same like places, because you know, they're used to it working, and that's perfectly understandable. But yeah, you're like using fuzzy jump and this other option that I have. So the other thing that you can do to help fight this situation is use your assist. So while after 2B, right, after this move, after they shoot another gunshot like that, there's actually a gap there, and in this gap, like, you might not be able to do like an action of your own because the bullet will hit you. You can actually call your assist, and certain assists can actually hit Gordo out of whatever he wants to do next to continue pressure. Like that essentially that string, like he has to, like, if they're just going for like any command grab or a reset 2B, like they have to, that 4P, they can't stop it from coming out unless they do like they call it out by doing like a B Grim Reaper or something like that. Which in that case goes back to, if they're doing Grim Reaper, like you mostly just have to look at Ruby. That's the other thing. When cross combo active switch stuff is going on, don't pay attention to the character that they swapped out of. Like, once B Grim Reaper starts going like this, like, stop paying attention to Gordo and start paying attention to where Ruby is, and then you can probably start to fight back or start to devise your answers a little better, as opposed to like, because it is a little confusing seeing all these characters and scythes and like all these buzzsaws on the screen at once. But keep in mind that like only the character that they're controlling can really do a whole lot, and that's also the direction you block in. One thing I forgot to mention with rubies is that say she does like a buzzsaw in neutral like this, and it ends up going behind you. Most people end up trying to block Ruby in that direction, but they don't have to. They can just block in Gordo's direction, and it'll work every time, even if it does cross up, because it no longer matters, because you know, that's Gordo's now the character that you're blocking. So with that in mind, I guess for the other answers with like with the 4P, if you don't have a fast 4P, it's a little harder to answer this, just because of like it doesn't have because it doesn't get to hit Gordo quite as quickly. But at the same time, you can also most characters have an assist that's fast enough for you to at least get it out there and for him to have to block it. So it might be their 5P or maybe even their 6P in some cases. But like, say with Jin, like, he can do this with Ice Car as well, but like it's a little trickier to do it with that one, just because it's like you have to default to 5 and you can't just like do back and hold 4, because when you're doing something like this, you can just start holding 4 after the 2B happens, and then the assist will come out at the first possible frame. Because in this game, if you hold the P button, it will always, whatever input you're trying to do, like resonance plays or assist, it'll come out on the first possible frame where it's allowed. So using this, you could potentially definitely blow up people who are trying to go for regular cross combo offense. And if they do try to go for Grim Reaper, their offense becomes a lot more limited, because they don't get to do, they lose access to the command throw, because now with Ruby, they have the teleport and they have the overhead. But both options are like, the cross up is something that she has to like leave an opening for you to be able to do something like push block mash, or or anything on that matter. And also the other thing is, when I was playing Kazunoko, I actually didn't end up contesting it too much. I ended up just blocking it because a lot of because they kind of have to go for stuff like waiting for the assist to, like using 5B to time out like Gordo a little bit so that he can so that they can end up using the assist to cross up. Because like the reason why they don't just go up to you and do this is because like they have to wait for Gordo to finish recovering before they can actually use their assist. So with that in mind, like you can telegraph their actions a lot easier when it's more like this. I wasn't really scared of his offense when he was in like after this scenario, just because like there was only like so much that he can do that would be considered effective in that scenario. And like so that's mostly it for the answers on Gordo's end with that regard. So in conclusion, I just always generally like push blocking the Grim Reaper if I'm at the spacing where I'm allowed to, and I like to use like fuzzy jump and fuzzy 4P to kind of mitigate the scenario of Gordo doing like 50-50s on you, like with this kind of stuff. So generally that's just like an overview of how I can of how I studied for Kazunoko, and I made sure to stop his assist calls and try to make cross comboing him for him really as difficult as possible. And when it did happen, I just tried to stay calm and make sure that I could like get out of it as like with as few losses as possible, and just make sure that I can assert my offense as like, you know, as fine as I can. So I just wanted I think I got most of the things I wanted to share out of the way. And as for when they're both together, like the other mix-up part of it, like let's see, because let me just try to, where do I do the character thing? There we go. So this mix-up, right, like the Siphon mix-up, like a lot of like people generally have trouble with that one, and in the sandwich mix-ups in general. So what you can do against the Siphon mix-up is if you block it, you can actually push block and throw Gordo, or try to hit something, because it creates that much of a gap and you get pushed towards Gordo. And to call it out, they definitely have to go a lot out of their way to do so. And if you end up hitting them, or end up having them defend against the throw, the cross combo will end. So that's something to consider as well. And it's also like something that, like, using the previous knowledge that I told earlier, like you can escape from the scenario using this in mind. And then if you feel like you don't have faith in blocking like the Siphon mix-up, then you can always burst right when the Siphon hits you, and then there's and then like right as the active switch happens, you will get hit by the bullets, but he won't be able to combo off of them, and cross combo will end because the burst will hit them. And then the other thing was, like, in the sandwich scenario, like afterwards when you're blocking, and Gordo will always do 2B, and then he'll most likely do a B Grim Reaper for a cross up. And if you block the B Grim Reaper cross up, it becomes a lot harder for them to assert proper offense, because that's usually when the cross combo timer is almost over also. So, and like usually, I won't be lying to you. Most Ruby Gore players do not expect people to block that part. So that's just so definitely after a B Grim Reaper, or after 2B, always try to expect like a B Grim Reaper cross up or non cross up, because that's a very powerful option that a lot of Ruby Gore players default to. And one tell that you can actually do for B Grim Reaper is that, like, right before he does the move, he puts his scythe on the, like, he puts his scythe in like the winding up motion right before he goes for it. So that's just something to keep in mind in addition to that. And I figure he would mostly go for these. Hmm? He would mostly go for these just because, like, you know, it works on everyone, and most people don't really know how to deal with it. So sandwich scenarios are definitely tough. They're the situations where you most likely have to block some things and have to try to find your way out of it with a burst or just by blocking it. But generally, I don't know. It was a situation I ended up trying to just deal with the best I can, and I think and just try to not be in that scenario much in the first place, because a lot of ways they like to set up sandwich scenarios is by using Ruby's teleport to get on the other side, or maybe like using her my mobility to kind of put Gordo in a position where they can sandwich people. And that's when it gets really scary, because then they get to do like cross-up mix-ups in addition to to the stuff that they already have. So like definitely using proper burst and push block is it's so important in trying to deal with this team already. Now most people already know, but when you push block, or when Gordo appears on the screen and he does Grim Reaper and he pops cross combo like that, and Ruby's in front, you should always push block. Just like Gordo, just because just so he doesn't get to do stuff like this and make the situation worse. So what you can end up doing actually is doing something like after you when you push block Gordo. Oh, I didn't record it. Let's see. Because when you push block Gordo, it pushes him to the other end of the screen, and it also pushes you a little bit back as well. But and when you're sandwiched like this, it's tempting to want to push block Gordo, and sometimes I end up doing it anyway. But the problem with doing that is, like, even if it pushes him really far away, Ruby's still right there, so you can still do like a Siphon mix-up, and you'll end up having wasted a meter. Like, I end up having to, I want to save my meter and my burst as often as I can in this matchup, because I want to be able to use to get out of cross combo scenarios as best I can, because those are the most dangerous scenarios to be in the first place. So using all that in mind, hopefully people have a better idea of where to push block and burst with this team. And you know, hopefully I was you know, a little more like as clear as I could with like all the points that I had in mind.